Mike.
Hello.
That's a good yerba mate. How are you, Mike?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Nice, nice background. Love the sunset there. Looks like a nice place. California coast.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Big Sur. So my father-in-law actually painted that.
Nice.
It's like a big oil painting of Big Sur. Exactly.
Mine looks a bit old. We're in this Airbnb, but it's a real one. It's a bit grandma-ish, but it is what it is.
That's great.
SDR podcast, MuteSix. Well, did you check out like what we do? What was the podcast about? Did you have questions?
A little bit. I looked at the website. I got your cold email, obviously. Kind of caught my attention. Catchy tagline or catchy subject title. And I've always wanted to do a podcast, so it was interesting. I love saying yes to things, especially new things. So it's exciting to be.
Well, we share the same mindset. I started this podcast, just to work the muscle, work the habit, as everything I do in life. Well, my theory and my thesis is just to start it and practice and get good at it, 1% better. So I'm not gonna tell you, this podcast is epic in terms of viewership. I can tell you that I'm getting 1% better, like daily on a daily basis. That means that in 2 years I'll be 720% better at podcasting, and hopefully the viewership will follow. But that's why I started this podcast. And oddly enough, myself, I haven't been invited that much to other podcasts for now. I am going to be pretty soon, but I think it's cool to discuss with similar-minded people, about sales especially, which is one of my favorite topics, obviously. And yeah, that's why I reached out to you, and glad that you liked my copy.
Absolutely.
So are you just ready to rock and roll, or should we schedule that another time? What do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, I've never done a podcast before, so I'm fine just doing it. I'm kind of the same exact way, It's like if you're not learning, then you're just staying stagnant. So it's one of those things I always like doing, and you're exactly right. It's like this is the first one, but you're always going to learn something to get 1% better. I like that mentality.
Cool, man. Well, I just had a shot of yerba mate, and I'm pretty much ready to roll. You have a very nice experience, by the way, so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Sure.
All right. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast. Maybe you can introduce yourself, and certainly introduce MuteSix, which looks very interesting to me.
Yeah, Charles, thanks for having me, of course.
Sure.
My name is Mike Maggio. I am the VP of Sales at MuteSix. So we are the #1 digital marketing agency in the nation for direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands. We're based out of Los Angeles, the Santa Monica area, and we're currently managing about $650 million in ad spend, primarily for direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands across social, so Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Pinterest, paid search, Google, YouTube, email marketing, Amazon, and then creative. So our agency over the we've been around for about 9 years. Our agency is currently about 450 people all in-house here in West LA.
Okay.
And really the biggest thing that we've done a great job of over the last 9 years, and really what's helped us differentiate is the brands that we're working with. So it's disruptor brands, the Theraguns of the world, the Mack Weldons, a lot of brick and mortar brands that have come into the D2C space like PacSun, John Paul Mitchell. But we've really put an emphasis on not only the media buying side of it, but the creative side. So we actually have an 85-person in-house creative team that helps our clients build out that data-driven creative strategy as well as that media strategy. So that's who we are in a nutshell, MuteSix.
Well, you have something very impressive there. But before we go to MuteSix, by the way, I have my Theragun as an athlete, as an Ironman. It's a lifesaver. I can tell you that for sure. And props for having that brand in your portfolio. They must be doing pretty well. But I want to get to like your early experience, because I mean, VP sales of a big agency like that is quite an accomplishment, I must say. But you also worked at Zipcar. Can you start like at that experience and then tell us about Classified Ventures, Apartments.com, and Groupon?
Absolutely. So going back to Zipcar days,
Yeah,
man, it was about 15 years ago now. But that was my first internship ever out of
yeah,
college.
yeah.
And this was when Zipcar was a very small brand. I was actually in New York for the summer. My brother lived up there, and he knew the marketing director. So this was back when Zipcar was doing guerrilla marketing. They didn't have a huge budget, and they were going around doing things like putting the Zipcar sticker on the New York subways. Like if you've ever been to New York, it's like the 1, 2, 3, and then it's like
Yeah.
the round, and they would slap a Zipcar sticker as people were going down, or they would do events. They had street teams. So I did an internship with the marketing team when they were doing that guerrilla warfare, and it really showed me, you know, obviously as the years went on, Zipcar is now pretty much a household name, but it was really cool to see people on the ground floor really getting their feet dirty, you know, going out, being on the street, and thinking of innovative ways to market.
Mm.
Then, you know, Classified Ventures was my first job out of college. I worked for Apartments.com, and I did a sales management training program for them. I was there
Okay.
for about a year. It was great. I got to sit with every single department within Apartments.com, eventually to be in a management position. But about a year into that, I didn't love it. And this thing called Groupon was starting to come around. You know, it started in Chicago, and actually my sister, who was a dentist at the time, she was probably 25. It was mostly females in Chicago around 25 is really who Groupon marketed. So my sister and her friends were super early adopters.
Okay.
So she was telling me about this thing called Groupon. I went home to Cincinnati. It wasn't in Cincinnati yet. I didn't really like Apartments.com. So I reached out to support@Groupon.com, and I said, you know, this thing is in Chicago. It's not in Cincinnati yet. I want to start it in Cincinnati. Can I come work for you guys and start Groupon Cincinnati? And within like 3 hours, they had emailed me back, put me in contact with the recruiters. And about 2 weeks later, I was working at Groupon. I was one of the first 90 people at Groupon back when we were starting cities. You know, I had looked at the unique visitors of Groupon. You know, you can go and see anyone's unique traffic, and it was going up hundreds of thousands of people every single day, which was made me make the decision that this is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to start this. So I went there. They had just found someone to start Cincinnati when I went over there, but I started Groupon Oklahoma City, Groupon St. Louis, and then I worked on Groupon Chicago for about 8 years.
So what was the scope of that work? Did you make cold calls? Did you approach like new businesses and told them about Groupon? What was the day-to-day like?
It was 100% cold call. So it was out of Chicago, and it was reaching out, and it was a land grab. It was actually a very cool experience because it was me and one other partner, Danny Leonard. Actually, me and him were responsible for starting Groupon Oklahoma City. So it started with identifying who the businesses were in Oklahoma City, you know, the spas, the restaurants, and making, getting all the contact information. So within Salesforce, logging all the leads first. You had to find the leads. And then it was cold calling. It was making, you know, 60 to 100 cold calls a day. We actually started a foot group, Oklahoma City, and then I would reach out to a lot of business owners through Oklahoma City, through the Facebook as well. So it's just really trying everything and anything we could to get the first 5 deals. We had to get 2 weeks of deals, and then we had to get 10,000 subscribers before we could launch a city. So it was really cold calling to get those first 10 deals that we could actually launch Groupon Oklahoma City.
It's quite interesting. And you got promoted senior account executive. Why did you leave Groupon, and how did you get the offer of MuteSix?
Sure. So Groupon, I worked there for about 8 years. I got to the highest level you could possibly get there as a salesperson. And I was 28, and I was like, well, I can either continue at Groupon, make you know, it was low 6 figures. It was a good salary. You know, I was making decent money.
Okay.
But I started, it was all still cold calling. Still 8 years in, I'm still making my 60 to 100 dials, doing the same exact thing. And I got to a point where I'd wake up every morning and I wasn't excited to go to work. You know, it's like when you get up every single morning, you have to curse to get out of bed, and you're like, God damn it, I got to get out of bed today and go into Groupon and make 100 dials.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Like there's a lot of wear and tear when it comes to cold calling. Even SDRs, most SDRs have, the highest turnover rate in the whole industry. You need to put them on other tasks, like, for example, LinkedIn outreach or email outreach or research, because there's a lot of wear and tear when it comes to 100% cold calling.
100%. And that's, I think Groupon to this day is still pretty much 100% cold calling.
Yeah.
And when it comes to
crazy.
sales, I came to the realization that there's thousands of sales jobs out there that you can make $100,000, $150,000 a year doing. And so, I was actually an actor in Chicago as well. So at that point, I was like, I quit and I moved out to LA, and I was acting. So I was doing commercials, I was waiting tables, I had a manager, I had an agent. And for 2 years, I just quit Groupon and moved out to LA to act. Because I was like, you know what? I can always get another sales job. I'm not always going to be able to take a hand at acting. So I came out here, I was doing that for 2 years. And then one of my buddies from Groupon actually knew the CEO of MuteSix. So we went out and had lunch with him back when MuteSix was probably about 25 to 30 people large.
Okay, that's quite interesting. We're gonna pause a moment here and tell me, how does the actor career helps the sales career and vice versa?
So the acting career helps the sales career. One, and just so it's a grind. Being like an actor in LA, first off, everyone says they're an actor, but I would say 95% of the actors in LA make $0 doing it. So they're basically taking classes. I did a whole bunch of extra work, and I got my SAG card, which is a Screen Actors Guild. I did probably 5 or 6 commercials. The most I made in 1 year was probably $18,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more than 95% of the people in LA. So at the same time, I was waiting tables. You're always waiting. You might work 3 times in a year as an actor. So you're getting a lot of no's. It's persistence. And if you don't have that persistence and that grind mentality, then you're going to fail. So the biggest thing about taking that over to act into sales is that same exact mentality. Is like, you're going to get no after no after no after no. And you have to keep grinding and keep putting in that time in order to be successful, really in any industry you go into. And then
it's very accurate. When you check Will Smith's biography, by the way, he'll have his biography out pretty soon, and I will certainly one of the first to buy it. And Robert Downey Jr., these guys are hustlers, man. Like, and yeah, you're super right. And it didn't flash to my mind, that you need to hustle super hard. But why do you need to hustle so hard? Is it because everyone and their cousin want to be an actor?
Exactly. That's 100%. And then you have to treat it like a business.
Okay.
I had to do cold emails out to agents. I had to go do agent workshops. I had to get in front of people. I was doing probably 5 commercial auditions a week. And so, you're doing 100 to 150 auditions just to get one yes. And so you're getting rejected 149 times before, okay, yes, you can be in this one commercial for $3,000.
My God.
So it can get really discouraging. And if you're not putting in the hours and being consistent, it's just like SDR. Like, the biggest thing I tell my SDRs is the consistency. Wow. It's just like when you hear like LeBron James or a Will Smith, you see them at their height. You see them in the game. You see them winning a championship. You don't see them in the gym at 3 o'clock in the morning, at noon, and then again at like 5 p.m. It's that time by yourself, and it's the consistency that gets you to that win. And so that's the biggest thing that really has taken over from that acting world to the SDR, or I guess to the sales world.
Man, that's so true. I'm reading Tiger's biography right now. And I mean, like, yes, he was in the gym, like all of these hours he was practicing, and people do not see that. And that's so true. And that's so big, especially in sales. At the time you came in, MuteSix, 25 employees. So like, let's say it was at 80% less than the size that it was right now. Well, you started like SDR at this company. Can you start telling us about what you did as an SDR? And then I want to get like how the heck did you guys grew so fast? And that must have been like in good part because of you. So I want to get in the details of that.
Yeah, so I was the second sales hire at MuteSix. So
Okay.
my counterpart, my partner in crime, Greg Gilman, who's now the chief revenue officer, was their first sales hire.
Okay.
And I came in as his SDR. You know, I told him, one, I have to have flexibility because I was still acting at the time. And then two, I'll come in and, you know, I'll get you meetings. And right off the bat, one, it was just something that an industry that I really liked. When I met with Steve Weiss, our CEO, and he was telling me, you know, their biggest clients are spending $400,000 a month on Facebook advertising. You know, I was like, people spend $400,000 a month on advertising on Facebook, and he was like, that's small potatoes. He's like, there's the Coca-Colas of the world are spending $10 million a month on Facebook.
Yeah.
But they really carved out their niche with those SMB growth brands. So when I first came into MuteSix, 95% of our clients were word of mouth and referral. And I'm talking like NHL.tv, which is like the streaming service, MeUndies, which is like a large, you know, D2C underwear brand. And
Yeah.
because of the work that the team was doing, they were doing such good work. These large brands, you know, they would tell their CEO friends. And then, so I was really I was the first person to ever really do outreach. You know, Greg had done a little bit of it, but he was so busy selling that, you know, I came in with the opportunity of having anyone I wanted to reach out to in front of me. And that's what was so exciting in the early stages. And I'll say this to any SDR, it is a grind. SDR is probably one, I mean, it's hard. It's the easiest job you're going to have in the sales world because you don't have a quota over your head. You know, you're not worried about follow-up. You're not worried about this and that. Like all you're really doing is setting the meetings, but you're the first line of defense. You know, you are the one that's going after the right type of brands, and you have to like it. You know, you have to like what you're going after because it's not a 9-to-5 job. And
Right.
That's what I loved so much about MuteSix is when I first started as an SDR, I found myself working around the clock because I was like, here's another brand, here's another brand, here's another brand. And it really became this really exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roller coaster, but I'm curious because my SDRs do have quota and my SDRs do follow a whole lot. So you mentioned that you didn't have those two things. I'm curious to know more about that.
So I do, SDRs have a quota, obviously. They got a meeting quota. And an education piece. One big thing about the SDRs is like you have two jobs. First and foremost is to set meetings for the account executives.
Yeah.
Meetings that are going to lead to closes.
Yeah.
And the second piece is product knowledge.
Yep.
Because I don't hire SDRs, I hire people that I think are going to be good account executives. Okay. And if you're not learning product knowledge from day one and taking that time as an SDR to learn that, that's the only, like, once you get to AE, it's too late.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by like, yes, you have the quota over your head, but you don't have like a revenue number that you have to hit. And you don't have a, you know, a yes or no with the sales. It becomes a lot more pressure once you have the actual sales quota over your top of your head.
I agree with that. I would also add the part of research. You know, my best SDRs, typically they're culturally speaking, smart people. They have high IQ. They know a lot of stuff. You know, if they would go to a trivia contest, they'd probably win prizes just because they know a lot. And they can research and understand stuff quicker than normal people. Do you agree?
100%. Those the best SDRs, you're right, have a good high IQ and EQ, where they're able to make decisions quickly of what is the right person. Because a lot of what SDRs do, like you can see the bottom 30% are prospecting just to prospect. Yeah. I'm prospecting 150 people this week because Mike told me to do it. Yeah. The top 30% are, I'm getting these 150 that are actually going to be the right fit for MuteSix and I think are going to lead to a close, not just a meeting, but to a closed client.
Correct. You know, they're self-starter, probably a bit like you and I. They get ideas of who to outreach to, they write that down, and then they get to execution. You know, I think that the best SDR do that in some way. And I'm curious, like looking at the years, that you spent at MuteSix. From what you told me, did you guys grow more with referrals, or did you also grow massively by the SDR efforts that you were putting forward? And by massively, I probably mean at least 50% of the growth is due to SDR. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, probably more than 50% has been to the outbound efforts.
Holy
So, I mean,
moly.
we now have a team of probably, about 25 on the sales team.
Okay.
And all my senior account executives, except for 2, which we brought in from other agencies, came up and started as SDRs. They started as SDRs, and now 3 years later, they're some of my top sellers.
Wow.
Because they put in the work, they got the product knowledge, which is one of the biggest pieces of being a successful AE.
Yeah.
And they exhibited exactly what you're talking about. It's all those qualities of being the best SDRs. It's tenacity. It's going after the right people. It's learning MuteSix. It's not just going after people to go after them. It's learning, who's the right person and that. So our outbound sales has 100% been the spark of our growth. Wow. Because the world's your oyster at that point. You can go after anyone you want.
Yeah. I mean, you can scale once you have the data. Well, you just double down, triple down, 10x on it, and the results follow. That's what's pretty cool about outbound sales. And moreover, you're in control of it. I've run my own Facebook ads agency, and sometimes, Facebook, will it or not, and paid media, these guys can decide to ban you from today to tomorrow, like suspend your accounts, or just, like bad stuff can happen. And I don't want to talk about bad stuff about like Facebook ads and stuff, because they're nice platforms too. And, it's an ecosystem of channels, and you need to pair it all together. And I will agree a lot with you on the point of AE actually being, expert at products. I think the modern AEs, and I even want to give them that title in my companies, they're consultants. I won't say like sales consultants because it's glitchy, but probably like I would give them the title SDR consultants, just because their job is just like a doctor. It's to diagnose something. Well, like get the data first, meet with the clients and ask him questions, diagnose what's up, and act upon it, most probably. Would you agree with that?
I love that. That's exactly right. It's discovery. A lot of, especially salespeople in the early stage, they're selling MuteSix. We do this, we do this, we do this. Instead of figuring out what that person needs, what is your biggest pain point? What's stopping you from hitting your goal? And you're right. You cannot diagnose something unless you know what the actual something is. Yeah. And so you're right, that consultation and that discovery is so important in those intro calls, because then you can subscribe or prescribe the right solution to their problem.
Correct. So I have a question about that. Like you just mentioned it, when salespeople start, they're most of the time they're in a scarcity mindset, I will call it, vs an abundance mindset. Abundance is like, dude, I don't need to rush. I just know that if I take my time and I do things well, money's gonna come. So how do you find a solution to that problem, in which like people, well, obviously want to put them a commission, want to motivate them, we want to put some kind of fire under their ass, but not too much, because they'll be in that aggressive, needy mindset. So how do you bring a solution to that problem that most businesses face?
With the early stage salespeople?
Yeah, their mindset, which is that I need to sell, and then they become a bit greedy and a bit aggressive in their sales tactics. How do you make someone evolve from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, which is the mindset that top closers have?
Yeah, and I mean, my really only answer to that is what I've done is give them your time. With all my salespeople, I do a lot of calls with them early stage, and I help them. I hop on the discovery calls with them. I show them first what I do, and then I listen and I give feedback. I'm on all their audits, and it's a lot of time. But as a manager and as a VP of sales, like I think that my time is best spent with my team most of the week. Most of it is one-on-ones and listening to calls and teaching them, versus, just, hey, here's your quota. Why aren't you hitting your quota? Now let's figure out what's wrong. versus guiding them and giving them, guidance along the way.
That's a good approach, which kind of leads me to the next question, which is kind of similar. Like some salespeople use scarcity a lot, for example, in their quotes, and they have a quota to meet, and they're like, hey, dude, if you don't pay me before this month, we can't give you the discount anymore. What do you think? What do you think in terms of scarcity? Do you think that it's a good thing? Do you apply it? And what do you suggest people do with scarcity?
So I don't know I don't know what scarcity. Are you saying like, hey, here's a 10% discount? Let me go ask my manager. You put on hold for 10 minutes and like, oh yeah, I spoke to my manager. We can give you the discount for this one time if you buy
scarcity being, I have just like I said, like I have 10 days that I can give you this 15%. You need to buy before that time, else that discount goes away.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's a tactic that all salespeople use. I actually think it's hilarious because, you'll see these like funny videos where someone's like, oh yeah, 10%, but let me go ask my manager. They put on hold. He's hold for 30 seconds, like, spoke with my manager. He's giving me this one-time exception. I mean, listen, it's more about figuring out why that person needs the 10% discount. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you provide the right type of solution to their problem, it doesn't matter if it's if I could charge $1 million. If I'm going to make you $3 million, then you're going to pay me that $1 million. Yeah. So it's trying to understand why that 10% discount is such an important piece of the sale.
Yeah.
And that it's like, are you up against someone else that is offering a better, price? And it's just literally, you have the same exact people. It's just, there's a 10% more than yours. Or is it this person, you're just literally trying to get this person across the line with this imaginary 10% discount because you have to hit your quota. So
I agree.
I mean, I don't mind using discounts. I think it's something that's always going to be used in the sales cycle, but it's more understanding why that person needs that discount versus me just offering it to offer it.
Yeah, the context. Good one. What do you have in mind for the next few years for MuteSix?
Yeah, what I have in the next few years for MuteSix is, one is we've really established the sales team now. We're into 4 years into, the SDR program, and it's always evolving it. A lot of it has been, we're in a cold email outreach world, where I feel like the last 5 to 6 years, a lot of companies have shifted to it. But we're also getting to a spot where, it was the cold call, and then we hit predictive revenue, which was Salesforce 2.0, and more of this, email marketing type. And it works well. Yeah. But it's like, you can't rely on that. And it's getting to the next point. I think Gong does a really good job of being the next forefront of where the market's going. Is they really teach their SDRs to dig into what makes that person tick, and they test a lot of things. Like, I've had Gong SDRs be like, I went to school in South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame, and I've had some of their SDRs be like, hey, Mike, I see that Notre Dame's playing this person this year. Do you want to bet 15 minutes that, a Notre Dame wins this weekend or something like that? And it's like, wow, that SDR must have taken, a good, they didn't just go through and prospect. They take the time to learn a little bit. And why I didn't get a meeting with that, I didn't take the meeting. I read that email and it still sticks with me to this. A lot of emails are that, and they do a good job of getting more personalized with it. I think personalization is really the next place that we're going to have to go to in this ethos to stand out from all these. There's so many cold emails now.
We are very much aligned on that one. I'll be respectful of your time because I know you need to go, but I have one last question for you. Sure. Did you give up on the actor dream?
So, yes and no. Okay. So I tell myself it's on hold because MuteSix has been such a great opportunity and I love it so much. Yeah. And to be honest, the last 4 years, I've been working 120-hour week, some of the weeks. And so there's just so much time that goes into it. But luckily for me, I found the place that I love to do that. And that's what the biggest thing is in sales. There are thousands and thousands of companies out there. You can sell anything you want. If you don't like what you're selling and you wake up every single morning, you're like, God damn it, I got to get out of bed today.
Don't do it.
Quit and go do something else. And that's what I did at Groupon. I was waking up and it was like months and months. I was like, why am I doing this? I was like, I'm a good salesperson. I can get a sales job anywhere.
Yep.
So I quit and I went next. And now, you know, I came in, I found it allowed me and gave me the opportunity to really find something that I love. And that's what MuteSix is. And that's why I can put in the 120-hour weeks. And it doesn't feel like 120-hour weeks. Like, I actually love doing it. And that's the only way you can be very successful and get to the highest level, if you truly love the company you work for and you love what you're selling and it's a good product.
Cool, man. Good lessons. Good parting lessons. Mike, thank you for your time. I'll keep you posted for the recording of the pod, okay?
Absolutely. It was great to meet you, bud.
All right, buddy. Have a good week. Bye.